Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 1, Big Sun. Bai Wudong slowly opened his eyes, and he saw a turbid river. Suddenly, he became conscious. Sitting up from the water, he was relieved to find that there were no zombies around. The moment he lowered his head, he saw himself in the water, and was immediately stunned. Obviously she was her original appearance, but she was 6 or 7 years younger. What shocked Bai Wudong the most was that she was dressed in a gorgeous dress with pearls all over her head, clearly looking like a young lady from ancient times. Could it be that she traveled from the end to the ancient times? Why does she have no memory at all? When I tried to recall, I felt a pain in the back of my head. When she reached out and touched it, she found a huge bag. When I took it off, there was still blood. She was stunned, and she probably lost all her memories. However, she was still very happy. In this world, there is no need to always be prepared to be eaten by zombies. Moreover, she has a lot of jewelry on her body. If she sells it, she should be able to find a place to settle down temporarily. Just as she was planning, she saw a corpse drifting past her eyes. It's been a long time since I saw the same kind. Bai Wudong's eyes stopped and he jumped into the water with a thump. He took him to the shore, pressed his chest hard, opened his mouth again, and gave him artificial respiration. Cough, cough, cough. The man suddenly spit out a few saliva and slowly opened his eyes. When Bai Wudong saw that he was awake, happiness flashed in his eyes, and he wanted to ask him something. The man's dark eyes blinked. The ignorant eyes made Bai Wudong's heart flash something wrong. See, the man's beautiful thin lips spit out an astonishing word, and the tone of mother is very aggrieved. What a big sun. Bai Wudong felt bad. She must have saved a big fool. Just as she was about to test it out, was this man dizzy with excitement? The man rolled his eyes and fainted again. Bai Wudong's brows twitched. Did this deceive her? She looks like a person, so it shouldn't be possible. She patted the man's cheek. Hello. Hello. Are you awake? His forehead and cheeks were hot, confirming that this guy was really dizzy. Bai Wudong had to check what was wrong with him. She ripped open the front of his shirt and found his chest wrapped in gauze, soaked with blood. This man was seriously injured before he fell into the water. Bai Wudong also found that there was a blood hole in his head, which also needed urgent bandaging. But she didn't bandage herself, so there was no way to treat him. If only she was in the RV, which has a first aid kit. As soon as he finished talking, Bai Wudong felt a heavy weight in his hand, and he was stunned when he glanced down. The first aid kit was actually in her hand. This is how the same thing. She pondered calmly for a moment, and had another box of cookies in her hand. The heart jumped quickly. It really wasn't a dream. Her RV in the apocalypse became a personal space, and she came to this world with her. What surprised her most was that she could take out anything in the RV at will. The RV was bought by her grandparents before the apocalypse. She had only 15 square meters of space, a washing machine, a refrigerator, a TV, a toilet, a bedroom, a storage room, and more. For her own safety and security, Bai Wudong's RV contains all kinds of weapons and supplies, except for the sleeping place, which is full. But because of these things, she has saved a life from the zombie group once or twice. The RV followed her to this world. Bai Wudong never thought that if she hadn't saved people first, she would even jump up and shout a few times. Grandpa Bai Wudong is a barefoot doctor in the village. Bai Wudong is so afflicted that he can handle basic illnesses. Struggling to survive for several years in the apocalypse, he is even more proficient in trauma operations. He took off the gauze on his body, and the ferocious wound was immediately exposed. After being soaked in river water for a long time, the wound has become inflamed. She first gave him an injection of anesthesia, then gouged out the white flesh on his chest, and then stitched it up with needles and threads. After the wounds on the man's chest and head were carefully treated by her, Bai Wudong simply bandaged the wound on the back of her head, and she immediately put the medicine box in the RV. The body was sticky. Bai Wudong glanced at the man who was still in a coma, took off all his clothes, and quickly took a set of close-fitting underwear and a linen skirt from the RV and put them on. If someone suddenly appeared, it wouldn't feel particularly strange. She originally wanted to wash the clothes by the river, but after taking a look at the turbid river water, she completely dismissed the idea. There is a washing machine in the RV, but I don't know if it can be used. With the mentality of giving it a try, Bai Wudong stuffed the clothes into the RV washing machine and pressed the start button. The washing machine started spinning immediately. Bai Wudong was astonished. Then came ecstasy. Then, she quickly checked other appliances. Except for not being able to connect to the internet, everything can be used. When she first arrived in this world, she was completely confused by the surprise brought to her by the RV space. There is a washing machine, the clothes are washed quickly, and the laundry detergent is put in. Not only is it fragrant, but it is also dried. Bai Wudong changed into her original clothes and packed some important things and food in her backpack. After a while, she was alert to find that someone was coming towards her. Hearing the footsteps, it was two people. If they don't have bad intentions, they can show up righteously. But, they didn't. Her eyes sank, and a sharp axe appeared in her hand unconsciously. Soon, two middle-aged men, one tall and one fat, appeared in front of Bai Wudong. The moment they saw Bai Wudong, they showed greedy expressions. Having lived in the last days for several years, Bai Wudong is very familiar with this kind of gaze. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.com. The hand holding the axe tightened. The fat man said without fear, "Old Li, you've made a fortune, this pretty little girl, everything on her body is worth at least 500 taels of silver." Old Li's wretched eyes stayed on Bai Wudong's face. "Fourth, something has been robbed, let's play again. I've never played with such a tender girl before." The fourth child laughed even worse. "It's a pity, if I hadn't returned to Linen City to be arrested and sold to the Red House, at least I would have made a lot of money. However, before the little lady was dying, it was worth it to meet our brothers and have a good time." Lao Li took a step forward with a smile on his face. "Little lady, as long as you are good." Bai Wudong's face was gloomy, and as soon as she raised her hand, two leaves shot out from behind her like shooting stars, sticking straight into the throats of Old Li and Fourth. She didn't even scream. Two men who wanted to do bad things to her just died in front of her eyes. Bai Wudong turned around and met a pair of dark eyes. When did he wake up? Have you ever seen yourself conjuring an axe out of thin air? If you see it, do you want to kill someone? However, this guy's physique is also very good. Anesthesia can make a person completely unconscious for at least 2 hours, and he woke up in an hour. After looking at each other for a while, Bai Wudong cautiously probed, "You saved me, and I saved you, so I'll take a step first." Hearing the word go, the man who was like it just now opened his mouth and said in a pitiful tone completely different from his noble and extraordinary face, "Mother, don't go, don't go." Even he stretched out his hand, trying to grab Bai Wudong. Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 2, Flee from Famine. "Mother? You sure?" Bai Wudong's entire face was petrified. "Isn't this really a big fool?" Bai Wudong rolled his eyes and took the opportunity to say, "When did you see those two people?" The man blinked and thought for a while. "When they talk." Bai Wudong breathed a sigh of relief. He probably didn't see himself conjuring an axe. Before the anesthesia had passed on his lower body, Bai Wudong planned to slip away. As soon as he lifted his feet, Bai Wudong remembered something, took out an apple and a few biscuits from his bag and put them on the ground, with his happy eyes saying, "You eat first, I'll go out for a walk, and I'll be back soon." The big fool picked up a biscuit and nodded obediently. "Tianbao waits for mother to come back." Tianbao. It really is a majestic name. Bai Wudong endured an inexplicable joy, picked up her backpack, and turned away from the man's sight without looking back. Bai Wudong walked in the direction of the Fourth and Lao Li for more than half an hour, and finally saw a dirt road. When she came out of the woods, she saw many ordinary people who were dragging their families for many days, all heading in one direction. Most of them are yellow and thin, with sad faces, and they look like they are not full. Bai Wudong is dressed in gorgeous silk and satin. Even if there is no accessories at all, it looks like a jade person, and it is still particularly conspicuous. Sensing that the people around him were secretly squinting and even ill-intentioned, Bai Wudong suddenly realized that what he thought was a low-key dress was actually not low-key enough. Bai Wudong was in the crowd and asked a kind-hearted old lady, "Auntie, where are you going?" The old lady gave her a surprised look and asked in surprise, "Are you fleeing the desert alone? Escape?" Bai Wudong raised her eyebrows and quickly responded, "No, my mother and brother are waiting for me in the woods. Let me find out how long it will take to get to the next city." The old lady nodded clearly, and she just said, "How could such a beautiful girl go on the road alone? It's still 30 miles away from Linen City. Walk fast and you'll be there before dark." Bai Wudong asked quietly again, "Can so many people get in?" Even if he didn't experience escaping from the famine in person, Bai Wudong had read a lot of cruel scenes about escaping from the famine in books. In order to prevent the refugees from entering the city and causing chaos, they often had to linger in front of the city gate, waiting for the government to serve porridge. The old lady shook her head, "Let's take a step by step. If you go back, you can only starve to death." Bai Wudong rammed a few more words, and finally made up her mind. She was in the Yen kingdom, not only suffered from severe famine, but also had a ruthless, and reckless emperor. 2 months ago, under the slogan of a different surname, Wang took the opportunity to launch a war and occupied more than a dozen cities in the Yen kingdom in one fell swoop. Independent lingua. The people were terrified, and they heard that the people who became Ling kingdom could be properly settled, and they would not worry about food and drink. The common people in the country of Yen were hungry, and they had to pay heavy taxes and do military service, which forced people to have nowhere to go. In contrast, more and more people were looking for hope to go to the country of Ling. Linen City was the only way for the Yen kingdom to go to the Ling kingdom. However, even if the Yen kingdom lost more than a dozen cities, if they wanted to start from Linen City and reach the current boundary of the Ling kingdom, they would still have to pass through several cities and walk through them on their legs, which would take at least a few months. Now that the Yen kingdom has lost the people's hearts, the country will be destroyed sooner or later. She had better go to Ling kingdom to settle down. The food in the RV can only be eaten for 1 month, and she must go to Linen City to supply enough food. Bai Wudong bid farewell to the kind old lady, quickly returned to the woods, and found a hidden place to hide. Grandma Bai Wudong was a tailor in the village. Bai Wudong inherited her good craftsmanship. She found a few old clothes from the RV and quickly made them with a mini sewing machine. The clothes that look tattered are actually very comfortable and convenient to wear. Superior. She took out her makeup tool again and smeared it for a while. After a while, a dark-skinned, black-spotted, ugly man with one eye and brown teeth emerged from the woods by the roadside. The men around looked at it and glanced away in disgust. No wonder he dares to go on the road alone. No one dares to give such an ugly woman to a ghost. Bai Wudong carefully paid attention to their expressions, and found that they all took the initiative to stay far away from him, for fear of having a little relationship with him. Bai Wudong was secretly delighted, and it was not in vain that she found a working white contact lens from the RV, saves a lot of trouble. Her body is too weak now, and she walked for more than 4 hours in 30 miles. The moment she saw the city of Linen, she felt that the blood blisters on her feet were all torn, and it was painful. Fortunately, Linen City did not prevent the refugees from entering the city. Bai Wudong wanted to exchange some money and found a shop. The shopkeeper waved his hand to signal the shop assistant to kick her out when he saw her appearance. Bai Wudong directly took out a golden hairpin and put it in front of the shopkeeper. "This is my family heirloom, I want to replace it with broken silver." The golden hairpin of Bai Wudong is not only exquisite in workmanship, but even embellished with rare rubies. With such a novel style, how can it be a family heirloom of a country woman? It must have been stolen. The shopkeeper rolled his eyes, laughed sinisterly, and said to a few tall shopkeepers, "Bold and evil woman, Yuukanshu www.yuukanshu.com dares to steal our shop's gold hairpin, grab her, and throw her out." Bai Wudong did not expect that in broad daylight, a serious pawnshop could do this kind of robbery. The moment his heart sank to the bottom of the valley, he restrained the shopkeeper with his backhand, and the sharp golden hairpin pressed against his throat. "If you want to hack my family heirloom, go to with me. The people who want to rob her and kill her are not only the fourth Laoli, but they are all dead." Thanks to her careful disguise, she killed them, and she was not afraid of being found by officers and soldiers. Bai Wudong's ruthless gaze shocked the shop assistants. The shopkeeper forcibly stabilized his mind, narrowed his eyes and threatened, "The Yamen are all my people. Even if you take the money, you won't be able to get out of Linen City. If you know the situation, let go. I can still consider letting you go." Bai Wudong didn't talk nonsense with him, but the golden hairpin pierced the shopkeeper's throat with a little force. The severe pain made the shopkeeper panic immediately, and he quickly said with a trembling voice, "The heroine, spare your life, don't stab, I'll have someone prepare money for you now." Bai Wudong said solemnly, "I know how much money should be exchanged. If you don't play tricks, if you lose a penny, I will cut off one of your fingers." The shopkeeper nodded in agreement, but quietly winked at the shop assistant. Bai Wudong swept away. The moment she sank her eyes, the shopkeeper was trampled under her feet. Immediately afterwards, a sharp dagger was pulled from her waist, and with a swish, it nailed it to the ear of the shop assistant, who wanted to run out and call for help, and even cut off a strand of his hair. The shop clerk glanced sideways and saw the sharp dagger on the back of the door, thinking that he almost died just now. His legs softened, and a smell of urine came from his crotch. Everyone at the pawn shop was dumbfounded. Agriculture escape, ultimate boss has a space pocket. Chapter 3, Into Town. Bai Wudong came out of the pawn shop, quickly dodged into an alley, put the silver and gold hairpins into the space, and took out the cosmetics in the bag, but after a while, the extremely ugly woman disappeared, replaced by a young ordinary girl. The shopkeeper struggled to get up from the ground, immediately covered his bleeding neck with a handkerchief, and shouted at the Yamen on the street, "There is an ugly woman who is blind with her left eye and robbed our store for 150 taels. Silver and a gold hairpin, you immediately send someone to catch her back." "Yes." The Yamen even respectfully said to a pawnshop shopkeeper. Bai Wudong saw it from the dark, shook his head secretly, the snakes and mice nested, and the roots of the Yen kingdom were completely broken. Bai Wudong walked into an inn and asked Xiao, "Do you still have a room?" Xiao said indifferently, "Shangfang, Xiaofang, and all the shops are still there. Where does the guest officer want to live?" Bai Wudong said, "I want a room." Xiao looked at her a few times, 5 taels of silver a night in the room. Bai Wudong nodded, "I'm going to go to the room." Xiao immediately smiled happily, "Guest officer, please register here, and you can check in." Bai Wudong thought that she would be able to move in if she paid to register her name, but who knew that she would need a household registration. Seeing her hesitating, Xiao deliberately said, "Now the army is in chaos. The guest officer has no household registration and can't stay anywhere. It's better for the guest officer to apply for the household registration." Bai Wudong thought for a moment, then took out a tael of silver and stuffed it into the small second-hand. "Where can I reapply for household registration?" "Those who reapply for household registration will definitely be able to create fake household registration. Xiao is obviously very skilled in this business." Sure enough, Xiao smiled like a flower when he received the silver, and said happily, "Wait a minute, guest, I'll take you there right away. It's just that it's not easy to renew the household registration, so it may take a little more effort." Bai Wudong understood it, and took out another tael of silver, "Then please pay more attention." After receiving another tael of silver, Xiao's face was full of smiles. He brought Bai Wudong to the Yamen, and murmured with the Yamen who knew him well. After spending 20 taels of silver, he could just give it to her in Yen Kingdom. A certain village has a household registration. Holding the freshly released household registration, Bai Wudong breathed a sigh of relief. She is also a person of status in this world. There was a long queue at the entrance of the rice grain store, and the food was terribly expensive. 1 tael of silver can only buy 10 caddies of polished rice, and if you convert the price, it is equivalent to 2,000 yuan that can only buy 10 caddies of high-quality rice. Even if brown rice is cheaper, you can only buy 100 caddies for a tael of silver, which is twice as expensive. Now that the famine is severe, the food will only become more and more expensive, and the refugees can do anything for 1 bite on the road. Everyone is not stupid. Buy as many as you can. With money in hand, Bai Wudong did not feel wronged, and asked for 100 pounds of polished rice, 300 pounds of brown rice, 10 pounds of white sugar, 10 pounds of salt, 50 pounds of oil, and 10 pounds of soy sauce. Silver. Afraid of causing suspicion, Bai Wudong directly lied that she was a maid purchased by the host's family, and paid money to have them deliver the things directly to the inn. 100 caddies of rice can eat her for 300 days, and now she has 400 caddies, which is definitely enough for her to find a stable place to live. In addition to food, Bai Wudong still lacks a lot of things, so I went to the fabric store to buy some ready-to-wear clothes and a few more durable fabrics. The weather is hot now, and by the time Lingguo arrives, it is estimated that it will be winter. Bai Wudong took advantage of the cheap cotton coats and bought several sets of cotton coats. Although there are very warm cotton-padded clothes in her RV space, it is absolutely inappropriate to wear in this world, and it will easily attract the attention of others. As long as it is for daily use, it is not suitable for her to take out the space in her RV. Bai Wudong has bought all of them. She went out carrying something, and after a while, she entered a pharmacy empty-handed. The experience of life in the apocalypse told her that food, medicine, and weapons are the three major elements for survival. Especially after the famine, it is easy to produce diseases. The medicine in her RV space is strong, but not much. Whoever made the end of the world come, the pharmaceutical factories have already stopped production. The pharmacy was overcrowded, and Bai Wudong waited in line for a while before reaching him. She knows a lot of formulas for daily minor ailments, which are more economical and effective than those prescribed by doctors. He directly asked the medicine boy to take a lot of medicinal materials for colds, fever, diarrhea, headache, pain relief, and plague prevention, as well as a few bottles of good gold sore medicine and hemostatic medicine. So many herbs cost her 50 taels. When the doctor saw that she had bought so many kinds of medicinal herbs, he frowned and said, "You don't see a doctor." Bai Wudong thought of the bag on the back of his head and said, "I hit my head, and I can't remember some things." The doctor took her pulse and talked for a long time, just wanting to prescribe expensive medicinal herbs for her. Bai Wudong was a little disappointed and waved his hand, "I'm taking medicine for the master's family." The doctor's enthusiasm disappeared at once, and he didn't even bother to give her a single look. When I came out of the pharmacy, the sky was already red. Bai Wudong wanted to hitch a ride with the bureau. After inquiring all the way to the bureau, he explained his purpose to the escort, but the waved his hand directly, "Go, go, go." It stands to reason that now is a good time for them to make money. They are unwilling to take darts, so there must be some big problem. Bai Wudong took out a silver ingot of 50 taels and put it in the guard's arms. The guard frowned, just about to refuse. Bai Wudong said, "Brother, I'm going on the road alone. I'm really scared. I just want to know some things. If the road ahead is too difficult, I won't go to my family." The escort's expression softened a little, and he put the silver ingot in his arms. "Ask." Bai Wudong got some more information. Yu reading www.uukangshu.com. Before reaching Ling Country, we still have to pass through Beiyun City, Jianyuan City, and Fengming City. Between these three cities, not only robbers and bandits are rampant, but the groups of refugees are even more vicious. Even if the goods of the Bureau survive the robbers and bandits, they cannot resist the waves of desperate refugees. Moreover, the closer you get to the Ling Kingdom, the more sensitive the government will be. If the refugees do something wrong, they will be hacked to death as spies of the enemy country. Linen City is probably the last city to enter. The bodyguard accepted the money and persuaded her, "You are alone, you better think about it and stay in Linen City." Bai Wudong nodded, "Thank you bro, I see. It won't take long for Linen City to become chaotic. If there is no free ride from the Bureau, it is necessary to get on the road as soon as possible." Bai Wudong returned to the inn, packed all the food delivered to the room into the space, and decided to leave early tomorrow. After drawing water and washing, turn off the lights and lie down on the bed to rest. When his consciousness was hazy, he heard a slight noise from outside the door. Bai Wudong woke up suddenly, hid in the corner of the bed, and clenched the axe in his hand. The door lock was pried off, and two men in black crept in. Holding two large knives with a cold light in their hands, they went straight to the head of the bed and slashed the soft quilt. In a moment of astonishment, Bai Wudong appeared from behind, and with one blow, 2 blows, they both fell to the ground at the same time, their eyes still staring in horror. It seems that this result was not expected. Bai Wudong didn't want to kill anyone, but if others wanted her life, they would never be soft-hearted. She tore off the face towels of 2 of them, and it turned out that it was the second shop assistant and the yaman who helped her with the household registration. Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 4, Call a Lady. Bai Wudong lowered his eyes and fumbled around on them. Not only did he get back the money he gave before, but he also gained 12 taels more. It's a pity that the household registration that has just been done can no longer be used. Now that the city gate was closed, and she couldn't get out of the inn, Bai Wudong dragged the 2 corpses under the bed and lay back on the bed to sleep. No rest, no matter how powerful she is, she can't bear it. Before dawn, she redressed herself. This time, she used hair dye to highlight her hair yellow, and painted dark circles and spots under her eyes. She looked like a malnourished yellow-haired girl. Throw it into a sea of people and forget it at a glance. Bai Wudong came out of the inn with an inconspicuous burden on her back, and just after walking a few steps, someone grabbed her dress. She looked back abruptly, and met a pair of star-shaped eyes with deep outlines. The man who was coaxed by her smiled foolishly, "Mother. Why is he here? How did he recognize her dressed like this? Linen City is so far away, how did he find her?" Bai Wudong's face was full of question marks. "Why are you here?" "Mother, if you don't come back, Tianbao will come to you. Tianbao has been looking for a long time, a long time." He smiled happily, his handsome and extraordinary face, but a fool. Bai Wudong said solemnly, "You have mistaken someone, I'm really not your mother. Either before or now." Tianbao blinked his eyes and said aggrievedly, "It's obviously my mother." Bai Wudong covered her face, "She really isn't his mother. How could anyone rush to be a son to someone?" Bai Wudong had to coax him again, "That day Bao waited for me here for a while, and my mother will come back right away, okay?" However, this fool actually learned to master, and shook his head resolutely, "Wherever mother goes, I will go wherever." Pulling and pulling on the street, no matter how much he swiped it, he couldn't get rid of it, and passers-by frequently cast strange glances. Bai Wudong's head was covered with black lines. Thinking of the 2 corpses under the bed in the inn, he had to drag this guy to an alley where no one was there. Bai Wudong looked at him all over. The wounds on his head and chest were split open, blood oozing out, his body was muddy, and he looked like a beggar. Looking at her eyes, they were bright, as if she was really his mother. Bai Wudong frowned and thought for a long time, "You really want to follow me?" Tianbao nodded vigorously, "Wherever mother goes, I will go wherever, and we will never be separated. If you are a real fool, good in martial arts, and obedient, it is not impossible to stay." Bai Wudong figured it out, so he put his hand into the bag, took out the medicine and bandages from the RV space, and then took them out from the bag. When others see it, they will think that the bag contains medicine before. Bai Wudong said, "You squat down and I'll change your medicine." He was almost 1.9 meters tall, and Bai Wudong was not a short person until he reached his shoulders. Tianbao squatted down obediently, and Bai Wudong unhurriedly undressed and removed the bandages. Fortunately, it only cracked a little bit, and it was done with a simple treatment. "Cuckoo." Tianbao covered his stomach, his face slightly red and said, "Mother, I'm so hungry." Bai Wudong took out 2 large steamed buns from the bag and stuffed them in his hand. Tianbao ate them while Bai Wudong changed his medicine. After changing the medicine, Bai Wudong frowned at his tattered clothes, took out a set of clothes from the RV and handed it to him, "Put it on." Tianbao held the clothes and said pitifully, "Mother, I won't." Bai Wudong's brows twitched, and he really wanted to pry open his mind and ask, "If you can kill people, why can't you wear clothes?" However, there is no need to be as knowledgeable as a fool. There is no need to waste time here. Bai Wudong told him while dressing him, "I'll help you this time, next time you have to dress yourself, do you know?" Tianbao blushed and nodded, "Okay, mother." Bai Wudong stared at him, satisfied in the bottom of her heart, she was quite well behaved. With a bang, something fell out of his clothes. Bai Wudong picked it up, and there was a Chinese character inscribed in the middle of the gold-inlaid jade plaque. Bai Wudong asked, "This is your thing?" Tianbao nodded, "Well, it seems so." "What does it mean to be like?" "Then your name is Chu Tianbao?" Tianbao thought for a while, "It seems so." Bai Wudong was speechless, and suddenly said with a smile, "Then I'll keep it for you first. Such a large piece of gold inlaid with jade is worth a lot of money. If you run out of money, you can use it as a flower. It's like he paid for the food." Chu Tianbao smirked, "Okay, mother." Bai Wudong frowned. He should be in his 20s, his body is only in his teens, and he can be his own father at a few years older. It is really inappropriate to call him his mother. Otherwise, she would recognize this cheap son. Bai Wudong thought about it again and asked Chu Tianbao, "Call me a lady." Anyway, she didn't plan to marry, and her reputation was not important to her. He was her husband in name. When he arrived in Ling country, he could not only settle down, but also save a lot of trouble. The more she thought about it, the more she felt good, and Chu Tianbao was much more pleasing to the eye. Chu Tianbao stared at Bai Wudong with some doubts. "Why are you called Nyangzi?" Although he was a little stupid, he also understood that a mother and a lady were different. Bai Wudong was too lazy to explain, and directly threatened, "If you want to stay, call me a lady." Chu Tianbao was terrified and grabbed Bai Wudong's sleeve. "Mother, don't leave Tianbao." Bai Wudong's attitude is firm. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.com, call me a lady. Chu Tianbao changed his words aggrievedly, Mississippi. He was timid and well-behaved. Bai Wudong raised the corner of his mouth, "Is that right?" Bai's beautiful wife, who is also covered with food and shelter, what a good thing. When they reached the city gate, several officers and soldiers came up immediately and stopped them. Bai Wudong's face was calm, but he panicked in his heart. He shouldn't have found himself so quickly. The leader of the officers and soldiers pointed at Chu Tianbao and said, "His Majesty the Emperor has a decree that all men who have reached the age of 12 should join the army. Now, come with me." The refugees were full of crooked melons and jujubes. Chu Tianbao was such a strong man that he liked it from afar. Bai Wudong suddenly changed his face. No wonder they let the exiles into the city, but they were forcibly stunned. Chu Tianbao grabbed Bai Wudong's sleeve and said nervously, "I don't want to be separated from my mother, my lady, and my lady, don't drive me away." The 3,000-year-old man grabbed a woman's clothes and spoke in disgust. A few officers and soldiers looked contemptuous and imitated Chu Tianbao's words, "I don't want to be separated from my lady, don't drive me away, ha ha ha. Bah! I'm so sick of me." Chu Tianbao's dark eyes reflected Bai Wudong's appearance. With a simple appearance, he looked particularly easy to bully. Bai Wudong's eyes flashed with displeasure. They were officers and soldiers and they didn't dare to act rashly. The two officers and soldiers sneered and pushed Chu Tianbao twice. When he touched Chu Tianbao's wound, he gasped and whispered to Bai Wudong, "Miss, it hurts." Chu Tianbao's mouth was calling, "Nyangzi." Bai Wudong knew in his heart that he still regarded himself as a mother, and reached out his hand pitifully for comfort. Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 5, Found Treasure. There were bursts of loud laughter around. "My lady, it hurts. I'm really lucky, I don't even have a wife yet." After speaking, some people's lewd eyes fell on Bai Wudong. "I didn't realize it just now, but now I see that this big silly woman looks a little ugly, but she has a good figure." A cold light flashed in Bai Wudong's eyes. He glanced at the many officers and soldiers at the gate of the city, and clenched Chu Tianbao's hand to comfort him, "Good boy, it won't hurt in a while." He glanced at Chu Tianbao fiercely for the leader of the officers and soldiers, and threatened in a vicious voice, "You bastard! How can you be a soldier who doesn't suffer and suffer? You can't stand it, and escaping before battle will definitely be the first, and if you dare to be a bitch, I will take your hands and feet. Interrupt it and hang it on the city gate for 3 days and 3 nights." When the men who were forcibly arrested heard this, they glanced at the city wall in horror, and their thoughts of escaping were extinguished. Bai Wudong pursed his lips and suddenly said, "Sir, my husband doesn't want to do this either," but when he met a bandit, his head and chest were seriously injured, and now he is unconscious. Even if he reluctantly went to the military camp, there is not much time left. Instead, it will implicate the adults. If you don't believe me, Lord, you can look at my husband's wound to see if I lied. He really can't join the army now. If he goes, he'll just waste food. The officers and soldiers in the lead didn't listen at all, so they lowered their faces and pointed the big knife at Chu Tianbao. Stop talking nonsense, believe it or not, I will kill this fool now. The emperor set a target for each city. It was necessary to capture enough men to expand the army. Regardless of whether he was injured or not, Chu Tianbao had to go to the barracks as long as he had healthy limbs. Bai Wudong clenched Chu Tianbao's hand and looked outside the city gate, which was dozens of meters away. Considering the possibility of rushing out of the city gate with Chu Tianbao without using modern weapons, is it necessary to catch Chu Tianbao? Such a big risk. Suddenly, someone stared at Bai Wudong with a wretched smile, and said diligently, "Boss, our camp still lacks a few female relatives to follow the army, otherwise, let her go to the army with her, and a foolish husband who can take care of her, and she will definitely be happy to serve our army." Bai Wudong's head exploded with a bang, and the anger in his eyes could hardly be concealed. They said they were female relatives of the army, but who did not know that their plan was to forcibly kidnap women from good families and use them as prostitutes. The leading officers and soldiers rubbed their chins and thought for a while. Their sinister eyes wandered over Bai Wudong, and chuckled, serving the country, who would dare not obey. With a big hand, he ordered, "Take them away together." The surrounding people all hid far away, for fear of affecting them. The soldiers were waiting for his words, rushing to take advantage of Bai Wudong. Bai Wudong lowered his eyes and put his hand into the cuff. Before the knife was drawn, Chu Tianbao, who had been bullied and cowardly, had already twisted the necks of the two soldiers in the blink of an eye. Before the smile on Xiao Bing's face disappeared, he fell to the ground one after another, losing his breath. The officers and soldiers stopped in their footsteps, and when they looked up, they found that Chu Tianbao's eyes were gloomy and terrifying, like a murderous beast without blinking an eye. The leader of the officers and soldiers was astonished, and his expression instantly turned hideous again, shouting, "It's a traitor, kill them." The officers and soldiers swarmed up, and Bai Wudong didn't hide it anymore. He pulled out the dagger sharply, and the speed of the lightning flint wiped a soldier's neck. Xiao Bing's eyes widened, his body softened, and blood flowed all over the floor, shocking. "I didn't expect this woman to be so powerful." The officers and soldiers raised their big knives. Chu Tianbao's powerful legs swept them down in vain, and they flew out together with the big knives. The leading officers and soldiers were even more convinced that they were traitors. If they were caught, they would definitely be promoted. He shouted eagerly to the soldiers guarding the city gate, "Close the city gate, don't let them run away." Bai Wudong lowered his eyes, grabbed Chu Tianbao's hand and said, "Let's rush out of the city now." The city gate is very bulky, and it takes more than 10 people to close it together, giving them some time. Chu Tianbao's skills were even stronger than Bai Wudong imagined. He had no weapons, so he took her bare hands and opened a path. Seeing that, they were about to run away. The leading officers and soldiers narrowed their eyes and saw Bai Wudong's order, "Kill that woman for me first." He could see that Chu Tianbao looked at Bai Wudong like an eyeball. After capturing this woman, Chu Tianbao will definitely surrender. The number of attacks aimed at Bai Wudong suddenly increased. She was not good at using daggers, and this body was weak. Seeing that a large sword was about to fall on her back, she had no time to dodge. At the critical moment, Chu Tianbao quickly embraced her waist, holding the blade tightly with one hand. The scarlet blood flowed out from the slits of his hands, but Chu Tianbao didn't care. Instead, he pulled the sword out of the hands of the officers and soldiers, and held it up with his knees. At the moment of Bai Wudong's astonishment, Chu Tianbao had already slaughtered a large group of soldiers swarming up like a melon with a big knife. Bai Wudong looked at the corpses all over the floor and was not afraid. Instead, her chest was filled with surprises. Chu Tianbao was more powerful than a machine gun with amazing lethality. She really found a treasure. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.com No matter how the leading officers and soldiers shouted, they still failed to stop Chu Tianbao and Bai Wudong from joining forces to kill the city gate. He jumped angrily and said, "Hurry up and close the city gate. Let them run away, and I'll kill you bastards." The soldiers who were afraid of Chu Tianbao had to bite the bullet and close the door. Just as the city gate was about to close, Chu Tianbao picked up Bai Wudong, stepped on the soldiers' heads and shoulders, flew over, and finally reflected the broadsword back with a swoosh. The next second, the city gate slammed shut, and before the soldiers had time to panic and let the traitor run away, what kind of cruel punishment they would receive, they found that the head of the officers and soldiers had been pierced by a large knife through their necks. With his eyes down, he looked at the big knife that penetrated his neck incredulously. He wanted to reach out and pull it out, but after trembling twice, he fell to the ground with an unwilling face. In a hidden grass outside Linen City, Bai Wudong was applying medicine to Chu Tianbao. The man with blood on his hands and face cried out, "Miss, it hurts." How heroic he was just now, how. Bai Wudong pressed his dishonest wrist, "Apply the medicine, don't move." After washing it with physiological saline, there were blood openings several centimeters deep on it. It is conceivable how painful it is to pick up a bare-handed blade. Bai Wudong carefully gave him the medicine, he twisted like a maggot, and from time to time he made a miserable cry of, "Ah." In the silent woods, it is especially terrifying. Bai Wudong frowned, took out a milk-flavored candy from his bag and stuffed it into his mouth. "Don't yell." The sweet milky smell melted between his lips and teeth, and Tianbao sat down obediently immediately. No matter how Bai Wudong smeared and wrapped the bandage, he didn't react at all. Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 6, How are you in my bed? After helping Chu Tianbao deal with the injury on his hand, Bai Wudong checked the injury on his body again. The wound on his chest opened again. Bai Wudong sighed, "Killing so many people, it's strange that it doesn't split." Bai Wudong stared at him and said, "Don't kill people at will in the future. If there are a little more people today, they may not be able to get out." Chu Tianbao, with a candy cube in his mouth, said vaguely, "But they bullied the lady." Mingming didn't even understand what the lady meant, as if she was really his lady. Bai Wudong was stunned for a moment, then sighed, "Okay, they deserve to die." Dared to move his mind on her, even if Chu Tianbao didn't do it, he did it at that time. Chu Tianbao evoked a beautiful arc, his eyes curved into crescent moons, and his face was innocent. Bai Wudong glanced at him, and resigned to suture Chu Tianbao's wound again. When he realized that he was dishonest, he put toffee in his mouth, which was more effective than anesthesia. After spending a long time, all the wounds on his body were finally healed. Bai Wudong stood up, her back was sore, her wrists also hurt, she was sweating, her hair and clothes were sticky. Chu Tianbao didn't go anywhere, except for his big bright eyes, his whole body was covered in blood. Bai Wudong especially wanted to take a bath, have a comfortable meal, and have a good sleep. However, Bai Wudong could only think about the RV space. She didn't dare to create the hot water in the RV space out of thin air, so Bai Wudong took out the wet towel from her bag and washed Chu Tianbao's face carefully. When Chu Tianbao showed a clean and handsome face, Bai Wudong glanced at the dirty towel in his hand, and suddenly realized why he was washing his face like an old mother. Bai Wudong wanted to put the towel in his hand and let him do it by himself. In the next second, he saw Chu Tianbao's hands holding the white blade for him, and then silently resigned and gently wiped the blood on Chu Tianbao's neck. Clean. Chu Tianbao raised his neck comfortably, with an expression of satisfaction with Bai Wudong's dedicated service. Bai Wudong threw him a new set of clothes with a sullen face, "Put it on yourself." He took a new towel and washed his face. When she wiped her face clean and raised her eyes, she met a handsome face that was close at hand. The distance was too close, she could feel Chu Tianbao's breath spraying on her face, that kind of numb and weird feeling. Bai Wudong frowned and took 2 steps back. "What are you doing?" Chu Tianbao raised his hand, which was wrapped into a zongzi, and said with an embarrassed expression, "Miss, I can't wear it." Bai Wudong looked at the clothes in his arms, then at his hands, picked up the clothes, gritted his teeth and said, "I'll put them on for you." "Okay, lady." Chu Tianbao immediately stood firm, stretched out his hand, and skillfully waited for Bai Wudong to dress him. Bai Wudong's brain is bursting, and she feels more like an old mother. After getting dressed for him, Bai Wudong also turned his back and changed into a set of clothes. There are sports bras in it, and she doesn't feel that she is very exposed. As soon as he turned around, he caught Chu Tianbao's very curious eyes. She was probably wondering why Bai Wudong's body structure was a little different from his. Bai Wudong already had some control over his thinking. Seeing that he wanted to speak, he covered his mouth. "Shut up, I don't want to hear you." Chu Tianbao glanced at Bai Wudong aggrievedly and shook his head. Bai Wudong glanced at the sky, took out a meat bun and handed it to Chu Tianbao. "Eat while walking. They killed so many officers and soldiers just now, it is better to get away from Linen City as soon as possible." When Chu Tianbao saw the meat buns, his cowardly head froze again in seconds. Bai Wudong took a bite of the bun, and with a glance from the corner of his eye, he saw that Chu Tianbao's hand was empty, and he was staring at the bun in her hand. No one has the ability to cook. Bai Wudong took out 2 more steamed buns from the bag and warned, "Eat slowly, don't choke." "Okay, ma'am." Then, another mouthful of half a bun. Bai Wudong sighed. Fortunately, she bought enough food in Linen City, otherwise, she was really afraid that she wouldn't be able to support him. Bai Wudong led Chu Tianbao to infiltrate the large army of refugees. They were dressed in ordinary clothes and disguised on their faces. They looked like a couple who were honest and fled. Walking to a narrow valley, the slowly flowing refugee troops blocked it. Bai Wudong stood on tiptoe and looked out, and saw a group of officers and soldiers blocking the valley in front of them, and from time to time there were sharp cries. She felt a thud in her heart, and she felt that these officers and soldiers were coming for her and Chu Tianbao. To check carefully, Chu Tianbao's injuries will definitely be exposed. Subconsciously looking at Lin Zi next to him, he pulled Chu Tianbao to hide. Ancient roads were not easy to walk, let alone forests. However, the country of Yan had a severe drought this year, and there were not many thorns and vegetation, so they didn't have too much trouble walking. Going around 2 big hills, Bai Wudong found a thatched hut where the hunters stopped when it was getting dark. She let Chu Tianbao stand guard. She carefully opened the door to have a look, quickly made a thick quilt from the RV space, put it on the simple bed in the thatched hut, and hid a piece under the hidden bed. A big axe, a big bag of dry food. Then, she turned around and went out and pulled Chu Tianbao in, pretending to be pleasantly surprised. "We are lucky, the bed is fairly clean." He glanced under the bed again, dragged out the dry food and axe she just put in, and said happily, "Wow, here there's so much more." Bai Wudong doesn't want to tell anyone that she has room, unless she trusts him enough in the future. After finishing speaking, she handed her dagger to Chu Tianbao. "Use this for self-defense." Instead, she picked up the big axe that was more than 1 meter long and stroked it twice, then smiled, "I'll just use it." Chu Tianbao had no objection. Holding a small and sharp Swiss Army knife, he happily said, "Thank you, lady." Yu reading www.yuukangshu.com. Bai Wudong bought a lot of grain in Linen City. Poultry, vegetables and fruits are expensive, and if there is space, they are not afraid to put them away. Bai Wudong also bought them heartily. For dinner, Bai Wudong boiled 2 eggs, 3 large sweet potatoes, and 2 pieces of sausage. Her body's appetite is too small. After eating an egg, she couldn't eat a few sweet potatoes and sausages. Chu Tianbao still looked like she wasn't full, so she handed him the rest of her food. After dinner, Bai Wudong spread a quilt on the ground. "You can sleep here." He threw another piece of clothing as a quilt. Chu Tianbao looked at Bai Wudong pitifully. "Tianbao wants to sleep with the lady." Bai Wudong gave him a cold look. "If you don't want to sleep here, just go out and stand." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Tianbao fell to the ground with a swoosh, covering his face with his clothes, leaving only 2 shiny eyes looking at her cautiously. Bai Wudong raised the corners of his mouth imperceptibly, but he didn't need to clean up. Bai Wudong tied a string of bells to the door. When someone pushed the door open and pulled the red wire, they would be awakened. As soon as he lay down on the bed, Bai Wudong couldn't hold back and closed his eyes. As soon as he relaxed, the figure lying under the bed stood up without noticing it. In the early morning, Bai Wudong was woken up by the heat. Before he could open his eyes, he felt a fiery touch on his hand. Bai Wudong's eyes widened suddenly, he jumped up and pressed down again, his elbows pressed against his throat like thunder. There was no resistance from the people under him. Bai Wudong could see his face clearly through the moonlight, and his hands loosened in vain. He said unhappily, "Why are you in my bed?" If he hadn't touched the axe, Chu Tianbao's head would have fallen to the ground. Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 7, Let's Find a Nest. Chu Tianbao didn't answer Bai Wudong's words, he cried and said, "Miss, it hurts." Bai Wudong suddenly lowered his head and saw that his other hand was just pressing on Chu Tianbao's injured chest. She didn't care about reprimanding him anymore, and hurriedly sat up and ripped open the front of his shirt. Chu Tianbao's strong chest muscles were exposed to the black moonlight. Bai Wudong pressed it with his hand, and Chu Tianbao shouted aggrievedly, "It hurts." Bai Wudong was speechless. "What are you shouting? The wound hasn't cracked, just right, it will be dawn soon, we'll be on our way after changing the medicine for you." "Okay, mother." "My lady." Bai Wudong corrected. "Okay, ma'am." Chu Tianbao blinked obediently, the bright teardrops still hanging on the roots of the curled eyelashes. Bai Wudong glanced at him, and the dressing changes unconsciously softened a lot. The delicate eyebrows and eyes were right in front of his eyes, with a very gentle expression. Chu Tianbao hissed a few times from time to time, and his hands clenched Bai Wudong's clothes to death. When Bai Wudong started to wrap the bandages, he loosened his whole body and asked, "Miss, where are we going?" Bai Wudong looked up at him, "Do you remember where your home is?" Chu Tianbao shook his head, "Where is the lady's home?" Bai Wudong's hand stopped for a while, and he closed the clothes for him before slowly saying, "Okay, let's find a nest first. Set up a home." "Okay." Chu Tianbao smirked. Bai Wudong stared at other people's harmless faces, rubbed the center of his eyebrows, and seemed to have forgotten something. "What is it then?" Bai Wudong and Chu Tianbao continued to set off for the next city. She had inquired before that it would take more than half a month to reach Baiyun City by carriage at the fastest, and if you were to rely on your feet, you would have to walk for at least a month. It is estimated that it will be even slower to climb over the mountains. However, walking in the woods is also beneficial. There was a pheasant far away. Chu Tianbao picked up a stone and threw it out seemingly at random. With a swoosh, the pheasant just flew up and fell to the ground. Bai Wudong said, "Go and pick it up." There was a severe drought in the Yan kingdom, and there was almost no harvest. The prey in the forest was either scared away or caught and eaten by the refugees. After walking for so long, they only caught a few prey. Chu Tianbao went to pick up pheasants, and Bai Wudong took out a small pot from the bag, planning to cook some white porridge, and then roast the pheasants. As soon as Chu Tianbao picked up the pheasant, a girl walked out of the bush next to him. She looks about 15 or 16, her body is dry, and her face is quite delicate. She kept staring at the pheasant in Chu Tianbao's hand, swallowed her saliva, walked in front of Chu Tianbao, and said delicately, "Big brother." Chu Tianbao glanced at her sideways, his gaze penetrated the few men and women who fell behind the bushes, and indifferently passed over Li Miaoyu who was standing in front of him. Li Miaoyu was ignored, and Li Dali in the bushes gave a stern wink. She gritted her teeth and chased after her, "Brother, I'm going to starve to death, please save me." When the words fell, she saw the opportunity and fell sickly into Chu Tianbao's arms. Chu Tianbao frowned and flinched, Li Miaoyu conveniently fell to the ground and fell to the ground. Li Miaoyu is the most beautiful girl in the village, and there is no man she wants to hook up with. This man, even if he looks ugly, he is so ignorant of praise. It just her off. Li Miaoyu got up angrily, her eyes were red, and she called out to Chu Tianbao miserably, "Brother, please, this is the prey I found first." She didn't believe it, but he could bear it. As a result, Chu Tianbao not only did not look back, but even quickened his pace. Li Dali rushed out from the bushes and shouted at Li Miaoyu, "Useless things. If you don't get pheasants, I will sell you for food tomorrow." Li Miaoyu's eyes were red, and tears came out all of a sudden. She said softly and weakly, "Brother, don't sell me, I'll go now." But she made up her mind that if Chu Tianbao was willing to give her the pheasant, she would go with him. Running away together is like being sold by them for food. Li Miaoyu chased after him, turned a corner, and saw Chu Tianbao hand the pheasant to a yellow-haired girl. Apart from being a little fatter than himself and having a pockmarked face, how can he be half as good-looking? She walked up to them imposingly, and said to Chu Tianbao confidently, "Brother, you give me a pheasant as a dowry, and I will marry you." She used to be given 2 taels of silver as a betrothal gift, but she never got married. If it wasn't for his good skills, the small pot on the ground was boiling white porridge, indicating that there was food in the baggage, and she would not have wronged herself. Bai Wudong glanced at Li Miaoyu with great interest. It looked gentle, but it didn't make anyone feel the temperature. Chu Tianbao didn't listen to what Li Miaoyu said at all. He stared at the pheasant in Bai Wudong's hands and said softly, "Miss, I'm hungry." Bai Wudong didn't speak. Chu Tianbao tugged at Bai Wudong's cuff. "I want Bai Wudong to take out a piece of candy from the bag and give him a belly pat as usual." Bai Wudong habitually pulled back his wrinkled sleeves. "Just be patient, the porridge will be ready soon." "Okay, ma'am." Chu Tianbao had a cute face. Chu Tianbao's tone of voice was clearly a fool, and disgust flashed in Li Miaoyu's eyes. Thinking that a fool is easy to handle, he said eagerly, "If you marry me as a wife, I can cook for you, and I can also steam eggs." Yu reading www.yuyukeungshu.com. Baked momo, as long as you like it, I will make it for you every day. I arranged the future days so quickly, and I didn't take Bai Wudong in my eyes at all. In her opinion, as long as Chu Tianbao is willing to marry her, Bai Wudong will be the next cousin. She is so good-looking and willing to take the initiative to marry a fool, what else would Chu Tianbao be unhappy about? Bai Wudong's eyes were deep, and he wanted Chu Tianbao to marry her, but he looked at him with disgust. He really didn't know where her face came from. Roll. Li Miaoyu's eyes widened for a moment, and then he yelled back angrily, "I'm talking to him, what are you talking about?" As soon as the words fell, Chu Tianbao changed into a person, raised his dagger, fierce like a beast ready to attack. Li Miaoyu panicked. He didn't expect Chu Tianbao to care about Bai Wudong so much. He was so hungry that he was really unwilling. He took advantage of me just now. I am a big girl. Either marry me or pay me the pheasant in this pot of rice. Otherwise, I will go to the government and sue you. Bai Wudong sneered, "Who is taking advantage of whom? You don't have any points in your heart." She saw it clearly just now. Li Miaoyu's face turned red, thinking of the consequences that Li Dali would sell no pheasants. He simply sat on the ground and said shamelessly, "If you don't give me the pheasants and rice porridge, I'll be killed here. Anyway, the innocence has been lost, and there is no point in living. My parents will find it and they will definitely decide for me." Bai Wudong was too lazy to talk nonsense with her, so he neatly pulled out the axe from his waist. With a "ha" sound, the sharp axe was swung out in vain with the force of thunder, and in the blink of an eye it was placed on Li Miaoyu's neck. "Anyway, the innocence is gone, why don't I let you go and report to the King of Hell?" Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 8, Deathmen. The icy axe was placed on her neck, and it cut a piece of her skin. The stinging pain came, as if her head would fall to the ground in the next second, and Li Miaoyu's face turned pale in an instant. With trembling legs, she stammered in panic and said, "Murder, murder is to pay for your life, my brother, right behind, he won't let you go." Bai Wudong glanced at her casually, "Oh, just kill a pair. It's as simple as killing and eating." With a slight force on his hand, Li Miaoyu's wound became deeper, and the less obvious smell of blood suddenly magnified dozens of times. Bai Wudong is really brave. Li Miaoyu was finally frightened, and when his legs became weak, he stumbled and fell to the ground. Then he rolled up and down, shouting, "Don't kill me, don't kill me." Bai Wudong watched her into the bushes, sneered, put the axe back on her waist, squatted on the ground, and stirred the rice porridge in the small pot. Chu Tianbao squatted down following her example and looked at Xiaogui eagerly. Bai Wudong gave him a sideways glance, raised the spoon. Chu Tianbao's eyes lit up, and he stretched out his head and opened his mouth to wait for Bai Wudong to feed him. A smile flashed in Bai Wudong's eyes, the spoon flicked around his mouth and put it into the pot again. Chu Tianbao pursed his lips, like a poor dog who didn't eat anything. Bai Wudong smiled and said, "Stupid, it's not cooked yet." He skillfully took out a piece of mint from his pocket and threw it into his mouth. That is, following her, following others who were sold and helping to count the money. Bai Wudong originally planned to drink some white porridge, eat some pickles, and roast a pheasant here, but Li Miaoyu suddenly appeared and interrupted her plan. When the rice porridge was cooked, she put it in a water bag that she could drink with a spoon, and handed it to Chu Tianbao, "Eat while walking." As soon as Chu Tianbao took it over, a group of men, women and children rushed over. Li Dali's eyes fell on the pheasant, his face was full of greed, and he pointed at them aggressively, relying on the number of people, those who are sensible, hand over everything, otherwise. Li Miaoyu pointed at Bai Wudong again and said excitedly, "Brother, look at their burdens, they are bulging. They were still cooking white rice here just now. In addition to food, there must be money. As long as she has money and food, Li Dali will not sell her." Hearing the words, big white rice, grain, and silver, these hungry people seemed to be filled with energy, and their faces were red with greed. The child in the woman's arms saw the pheasant on the ground and clapped her hands happily. "Dad, I want to eat chicken, I want to eat chicken now." Li Dali raised the sickle, and he was bound to say, "Dad, I'll give you chicken in a while." Bai Wudong and Chu Tianbao were only 2 people, but they had 2 grown men and 3 women. If they dared to resist, no one would know if they would be killed in the wilderness. Li Dali had the intention to kill, and Chu Tianbao also raised the dagger. He looked at Bai Wudong and asked innocently, "Ma'am, can I kill them?" It seemed that killing them all would be as simple as killing a chicken. Li Dali's heart skipped a beat, and he looked at Chu Tianbao vigilantly. He had never killed anyone, so he was actually ignorant of Chu Tianbao, who had a strong upper body. Otherwise, he would have gone up to grab it just now, instead of letting Li Miaoyu use some kind of beauty trick. Li Miaoyu said anxiously, "What are you afraid of? He is a fool. You and Dad surround him, and we will go grab the burden." Bai Wudong evoked a cool smile, and his eyes fell on Li Miaoyu's face. "You are very courageous." The little girl of 15 or 16 not only asked for marriage herself, but also dared to instruct others to kill. Li Miaoyu scolded angrily, "Ugly bastards, Yin and Yang are so angry, believe it or not, I will scratch your face." As soon as the words fell, Chu Tianbao suddenly appeared in front of her eyes, so fast that her eyes could not see clearly. Whoosh, a sharp knife slashed, she didn't even feel the pain. A few centimeters appeared on her delicate face, the deep bloodstains stretched from between the eyebrows to the corners of the mouth, the skin was open, the blood was dripping, and it was terrifying. In the blink of an eye, Chu Tianbao returned to Bai Wudong like a ghost again, holding a blood-splattered dagger in his hand, with a cold expression. He looked like a fool, he was clearly a vicious wolf. The Li family stood there in horror, their hearts almost jumping out of their throats. Itchy on his face, the dull Li Miaoyu raised his hand subconsciously, his hands were full of blood, and he screamed in horror, "Ah, my face, my face." Bai Wudong glanced coldly at the frightened Li family, took out a handkerchief, and took the blood-stained dagger from Chu Tianbao's hand and wiped it clean. Chu Tianbao stretched out his articulated hand and placed it in front of Bai Wudong, innocently saying, "Ma'am, wipe it off." There was also a little blood on his hands. Bai Wudong glanced at him sullenly, squeamish, he really shouldn't be used to his troubles. He put the clean dagger back on his waist as if he had done it 1,000 times, changed a clean handkerchief, and carefully wiped his hands. At this moment, the Li family could deeply realize that Bai Wudong and Chu Tianbao completely regarded them as ants that could be slaughtered at any time. Taking another look at the miserable appearance of Li Miaoyu kneeling on the ground and crying bitterly, the Li family's defense line completely collapsed and hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. "Woman, hero, spare your life, spare your life." Bai Wudong glanced at the shivering child in the woman's arms, and said to Chu Tianbao, "Let's go." Chu Tianbao immediately picked up the burden, picked up the pheasant and chased after Bai Wudong. Bai Wudong and Chu Tianbao disappeared completely, and the Li family dared to slump to the ground and let out a long breath. Li Miaoyu was still screaming miserably beside him, "Mother, find a doctor for me, doctor." Li Dali thought that she almost died just now, she still wanted to find a doctor, and she really thought she was made of gold. With nowhere to vent his anger, Li Dali kicked Li Miaoyu's chest. Sorrowful star, a whole family was almost killed by you. Li Miaoyu screamed, I'm not here for everyone. Li Nyang frowned and sighed, I can't get enough to eat today, what will I do tomorrow? Li Dali's eyes fell on Li Miaoyu's face again, and the anger in his heart became even stronger. Li Miaoyu looks like a ghost, no one wants half a caddy of food, so it's a burden to bring her, take off her clothes, let's go. Li Miaoyu's eyes widened, and she covered her chest in horror, I am your sister, how could you treat me like this? Li Dali sneered, just because you live now is a waste of food. In the end, it was her own child. Li Nyang couldn't bear it, she wiped her tears and said, Dali, listen to Nyang, leave the clothes to her. Li Miaoyu didn't feel moved at all, but felt that her body was cold, and even her mother was about to give up on her. She screamed with all her strength, why do you treat me like this? These days are all the food I bought. Without me, you would have starved to death. You have no conscience. Clap. Li Miaoyu received a slap in the face from Father Li and raised his head in a daze. Nye barrier, you should have been drowned when you were born. Let's go. When the Li family dragged their belongings away, Li Miaoyu got up in horror and staggered to catch up. If I didn't have the protection of the Li family, I would really be finished. Agriculture escape, ultimate boss has a space pocket. Chapter 9, as expected of a rich man. The mountains and forests are getting steeper and steeper, and there are cliffs everywhere. This place is also very far from Linen City. Bai Wudong looked at it from the mountain, and the refugees with their families and their mouths were densely packed. It was estimated that the officers and soldiers would not have the time to catch them, so they infiltrated the official road which was easier to walk. One of them carried a dagger, the other an axe, but no one dared to approach them. It's almost autumn, and the weather is still hot. Walking in the crowd, I can't feel the slightest bit of coolness. Bai Wudong took a few sips of water and handed the water bag to Chu Tianbao. Chu Tianbao drank it loudly, and the people around him swallowed their dry throats. They haven't had water for almost 2 days, and their mouths burst open. Now on this road, it is more difficult to drink water than to eat rations. With a thump, the skinny old lady fell to the ground uncontrollably. She said weakly in a hoarse voice, water, water. The young man with sunken cheeks hugged the old lady with red eyes, grandmother, you will be in Beiyun City soon. When you enter the city and find your uncle, you will have water and porridge to eat. Just hold on. I want water now, give me water. The old lady stretched out her hand tremblingly, her eyes wandering. The people around are not used to it, and it is normal to see dead people on the road to escape. They glanced numbly, and looked away like a walking corpse. Huang Zhong suddenly thought of something, put the old lady down, ran a few steps with all his strength, and before Bai Wudong could react, he knelt down in front of them with a plop. Master, miss, I read, I passed the exam last year as a scholar, and I work as a check-in clerk in the town. Please, give me some water, I'm willing to sell myself as a slave and be a cow and a horse for you. Chu Tianbao dared to drink such a big mouthful of water, and there must be water in his luggage. As long as he could save his grandmother, Huang Zhong would do anything. He was afraid that Bai Wudong and Chu Tianbao would not refuse, so he slammed on the ground again and again, and his forehead was soon stained with blood. Afraid that Bai Wudong and the others would have concerns in their hearts, they sat up eagerly, and when they opened their bags, they would write a letter of prostitution, I'll write a letter now, and you are my masters now. Bai Wudong glanced at the dying old lady, remembered her grandmother, took out another water bag in the bag, poured a bowl of water out, take it. Huang Zhong was overjoyed, and as soon as he picked up the water, the crumbling refugee immediately turned into a beast and swooped over. Before he could touch Huang Zhong, he was kicked out by Chu Tianbao. Huang Zhong didn't care to thank him, so he ran to the old lady's side. The water was fed to the mouth of the old lady. She stared at her cloudy eyes, but she lost focus. Huang Zhong trembled as he probed the old lady's breath, and suddenly burst into tears, grandmother, woo-woo, you drink water, there is water. Bai Wudong sighed helplessly, human beings are too small in the face of disasters. Now is just a little better than the last days. He cried so sadly that God was infected. Boom dash. A thunder pierced through the sky, and the clouds were densely covered. In a short while, it started to rain heavily. The refugees knelt on the ground and raised their hands and shouted, "God's eyes are open." The rain hit them and flowed into their mouths, making them live a few more days. For many people, this rain came too late, too late. The storm was violent, the road was muddy, and it was impossible to continue. It was getting dark too. Bai Wudong had to take Chu Tianbao to find a place to stay temporarily. Fortunately, they were lucky. After walking down the mountain road for a while in the rain, I saw an abandoned village. This village is very large, and many refugees have already entered the houses in front of it. Bai Wudong didn't want to crowd with them, so he took Chu Tianbao to a house in the most remote corner. There was no one in the room. Bai Wudong breathed a sigh of relief. They were soaked all over, and their burdens were naturally soaked. Bai Wudong, however, took out dry clothes from his bag and handed them to Chu Tianbao. "Change them quickly, be careful of getting sick." "Aha!" Chu Tianbao quickly stripped himself naked, quickly put it on, and took a peek at Bai Wudong, who was about to change. Bai Wudong turned around and threw a cloak on his head. "Don't tear it off." "Okay, ma'am." Bai Wudong put on his clothes, but Chu Tianbao was still wearing his cloak and didn't move. Bai Wudong took off her hijab, and caught off guard, she met a pair of big smiling eyes. Bai Wudong was stunned for a moment, then his eyes quickly shifted to the ground. There was some wood on the ground. She picked up many piles of ground, made a fire with flint, took out a small pot, got clean water from the water bag, and prepared to cook. Chu Tianbao stirred the white rice porridge with a spoon to prevent it from sticking to the pot, while Bai Wudong was baking the wet things. Suddenly, the sound of horses' hooves came closer and closer in the rain, and finally, they stopped at the door of the house. Bai Wudong quickly stood up, put the white rice porridge that was being boiled aside, and then stood at the window with the axe clenched, and peeked out. In the pattering rain, a burly man was carrying a baby who was still in swaddling on his back, and tied his horse under the big locust tree in the yard. Bai Wudong saw that he was gently holding the child into his arms, and the axe in his hand was lowered. Yu reading www.yuukangshu.com. Lin Yu held the child in one hand and the sword in the other, and slammed open the door aggressively. Bang! Sound. The weak child was frightened and started to cry. But the man ignored it, and looked at Bai Wudong and Chu Tianbao in the room with vigilant eyes. When Yu Guang fell on the white rice porridge in the pot, his dark eyes flashed a light, and he said to the guarding Bai Wudong, "Girl, sell me this pot of porridge." He grabbed it, but put his hand into his arms and took out a 100 taels silver note and put it in front of Bai Wudong. "Just 100 taels of silver bills. This is definitely a local tyrant. Anyway, she still has rice, so she can cook another pot." Bai Wudong took the silver note cautiously, and Lin Yu took the white rice porridge and walked to a corner, holding the crying child in front of him, ready to feed him rice porridge. Lin Yu was obviously a novice, holding the white rice porridge in front of the child's wide-open mouth and having no idea what to do. Then, his obvious appeal for help fell on Bai Wudong's face. It is probably believed that women are born with it. A hint of embarrassment flashed across his rough face, and he lowered his voice and said to Bai Wudong, "Can you help me feed my young master?" Turns out it wasn't the father. Judging from the satin material of the child's swaddle, the golden horse under the locust tree, their identities should be very unusual. Bai Wudong was stunned for a moment, and Lin Yu stood up and took out another 100 taels in front of Bai Wudong. As expected of a rich man. Bai Wudong raised his eyebrows, took the banknote, and reached out to take the poor child over. At the same time, Lin Yu also breathed a sigh of relief. Agriculture Escape, Ultimate Boss has a space pocket. Chapter 10, He is a little stinky. Bai Wudong has helped relatives with children and has some experience. As soon as he took the child over, he frowned. The swaddling clothes are all wet, so if you don't change them quickly, it will be troublesome for such an older child to get sick. Bai Wudong glanced at Lin Yu reproachfully, pulled off his cloak, and opened the swaddling clothes, only to find that the child not only urinated, but also pulled, and his was covered with paste. No wonder she kept crying. Lin Yu glanced at the golden feces, and couldn't bear to look straight away, with the expression of giving it all to her. Bai Wudong glanced at him speechlessly and asked Chu Tianbao to bring the cloak over. Chu Tianbao handed over the cloak, and as soon as he got close, he pinched his nose, and said in a gruff voice, "Stinky, he is just a little stinky." Lin Yu glanced at it and sniffed again, unable to refute. "There are no diapers here." Bai Wudong can only wipe the child's buttocks with a handkerchief, then tore off the cloak and make a simple urine pad. After the treatment was done, the child was still crying, and the little face was red from crying. "It's heartbreaking." Bai Wudong frowned and asked, "How many months has he been?" Lin Yu thought about it and said, "It's been almost 6 months. A 6-month-old child mainly drinks milk and can only eat a small amount of complementary food, and it has to be boiled very badly before it can be given to him." Bai Wudong said to Lin Yu, "The porridge is not soft enough. He is too young to digest it. You add some water to the white rice porridge and cook it again. I will feed him some water pads first." Lin Yu, whose child was crying, had a headache. Bai Wudong ordered him to do whatever he wanted. There is milk in the Bai Wudong space, but children under 1 year old will be allergic to it. Fortunately, she had a box of baby liquid milk in the supplies station before. She drank it once and felt unpleasant, so she kept it. "Exactly, now I can feed the baby." She poured the baby's liquid milk into the water bladder in the RV space, and then took it out of the bag and fed it to the child. The child's mouth touched the mouth of the water bladder, the crying stopped abruptly, and he sucked in big mouthfuls, obviously starving. He stopped crying, and his flushed face became pale and tender. The big dark eyes looked at Bai Wudong ignorantly, making people's hearts comprehend. With the child in her arms, Lin Yu finally felt at ease. Chu Tianbao came over and said with a pursed mouth, "Miss, I'm hungry too." Lin Yu felt that something was wrong with him just now. He glanced at Chu Tianbao and asked meaningfully, "Your husband?" Bai Wudong knew what he wanted to ask. "Well, he just injured his head, and his thinking is a little confused, and he will recover slowly." Lin Yu was not very good at comforting people, so he racked his brains to say, "Yes." Chu Tianbao tugged at her sleeve. Bai Wudong was breastfeeding the child, so he couldn't reach out to fetch him a candy bar, so he said, "There is some food in the bag, you should eat it first." Chu Tianbao said, "Oh," and went to the bag to take out 2 sweet potatoes, a potato, and an egg. Lin Yu glanced at the pot in front of him, then glanced at the food in Chu Tianbao's arms, took out a silver note of 100 taels, and demanded arrogantly, "I want a sweet potato, and an egg." Chu Tianbao, who was still smiling just now, suddenly changed his face. Lin Yu sensed a strong murderous aura and reached for the sword. In an instant, Chu Tianbao was pressed under him, and he was punched fiercely on the left and right sides of the face. Chu Tianbao grabbed his neck with a gloomy expression, "The eggs belong to the lady." The feeling of suffocation was like a life-threatening hoop spell. Blue veins burst out on Lin Yu's forehead. No matter how much he resisted, it would have no effect on Chu Tianbao. It was only at this time that he felt a strong sense of remorse. The couple who can come here with so much food, how could they be ordinary people? Just when he thought he was going to die, and he couldn't send the young master to Beiyun City safely, Bai Wudong's voice rang out, "Tianbao, let go." The hostility on Chu Tianbao's face faded in an instant, he let go of his hand, and his face was cute again, as if he wasn't the one who wanted to kill him just now. Lin Yu covered his neck and coughed a few times. Chu Tianbao protected the egg and placed it in front of Bai Wudong, flatteringly said, "Miss, eat it." Bai Wudong ignored him and said embarrassedly to Lin Yu, "He didn't do it on purpose, don't mind." Looking at Chu Tianbao again, he said solemnly, "Tianbao, take the banknote, and then give this young man an apology for the sweet potatoes, and eggs. On the way to escape from the deserted land, money may not be able to buy food. On the surface, they have all this food, but Lin Yu just wanted to leave her and Chu Tianbao a sweet potato." When Chu Tianbao beat him, Bai Wudong thought it was fine. Yes, at least make him wink a bit. Dare to say something nicer. To make amends, he will also receive his money. Not sincere at all. But the child was still in Bai Wudong's hands, and Chu Tianbao could kill him with one more move. Lin Yu could only eat this dumb loss and snatched the egg that Chu Tianbao was reluctant to hand over. Chu Tianbao saw that he had swallowed the egg in one bite, his eyes were red, he savagely gouged out Lin Yu, and then walked up to Bai Wudong aggrievedly, "Ma'am, you don't have any more eggs to eat." Lin Yu almost choked. Bai Wudong has a lot of eggs in the RV space, and it is difficult to take them out now, so he comforted, "I don't eat eggs, I have rice in my baggage, we eat porridge and pickles." Chu Tianbao nodded obediently, and walked in front of Lin Yu again. He stood in the backlit, condescending, his expressionless black face was majestic. He opened his mouth, but did not let go of his childishness, "Give me back the pot." Lin Yu withdrew his hand that was about to draw his sword. www.novel.com ding ding dang 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 poured out the white porridge in the pot, then threw the pot in front of Chu Tianbao, and said angrily, "Here." Bai Wudong glanced at them, no matter how stupid he felt, he would be infected. The child was full, and soon fell asleep. Bai Wudong returned the child to Lin Yu, and Chu Tianbao eagerly put the porridge into her hand. "Madam, here it is." The hot white rice porridge, accompanied by a plate full of side dishes, looked extra warm in the shabby house with air leaks everywhere. Bai Wudong took out a piece of candy from his pocket and praised, "Well done." Chu Tianbao took the candy, stuffed it into his mouth, and said with a smile, "It's so sweet." Bai Wudong smiled, and after eating a bowl of warm porridge, the moisture all over his body dissipated. A few months old children are easily woken up and can't sleep well. In the middle of the night, the child suddenly woke up. Lin Yu tried to coax him, but the more he cried, the more Bai Wudong could not fall asleep, so he fed the child again. A little water put him to sleep. As soon as they narrowed their eyes, the child began to cry again. Chu Tianbao said dissatisfiedly, "Smelly is so noisy." The lady couldn't rest well. Lin Yu was holding the child, unable to refute. Bai Wudong took the child from Lin Yu, who was at a loss, and changed his diaper. One night, after tossing back and forth 3 times, the sky was getting bright. Lin Yu hugged the child, and Chu Tianbao slept lightly with the tired Bai Wudong. At this moment, the sound of horses' hooves came from the door, and there were still a lot of people. Lin Yu clenched his sword tightly, and Bai Wudong and Chu Tianbao opened their eyes at the same time. Immediately afterwards, a code signal came from outside the door. Lin Yu immediately showed joy, and said to the people outside the door, "Come in."